Hey, everybody. Welcome back to this live episode of Think Business. I'm looking forward to talking to Yvan Demosthenes, who is the CEO at HamiltonDemo. Ivan, I'm looking forward to talking with you. You and your firm provide executive placements with a specialty in diversity. We're sitting here. It's January 14th, 2021. I think that a diverse boardroom has never been more important to grow any business. I many times am at in clients' offices, in the boardrooms, everybody looks the same. And I don't know how everybody can come up with ideas when they have two similar of backgrounds and, you know, they were raised all very similarly. And so I love that you specialize in diversity, but I want to rewind and talk about how does somebody raise their awareness to know they need more diversity in their organization? Because I think sometimes people get so stuck in kind of where they are, they don't realize it.
Yeah. Well, John, first of all, thanks for having me, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Happy New Year.
You and your audience. So that's a great point. There are opportunities there, and I think one of the biggest compelling reasons a couple of the most compelling reasons I've heard and realized from individuals and companies why they want to embrace diversity is, number one, they feel that it's the right thing to do. And number two is more practical. They're looking to increase revenue, right? They're looking to increase market share and improve the bottom line, right? Yeah. So those are all ways that diversity can contribute to that. And, many times the results can be pretty immediate as well.
Yeah. And when you say immediate, let's talk about that. And so, because recruiting is not immediate. So I just want to kind of back up from there. Because a lot of times recruiters, people in companies know they need to hire people, and then they pick the person who's the least busy to actually do the recruiting. And then that person is interviewing and connecting with people that they're just the most familiar with, right? Maybe to no fault of their own. And the reason to get a recruiter is to bring in new eyes and new ears and new perspective of things, and somebody who's very focused and can shed some light as a mentor to, hey, this would really help you grow your revenue. And so take me through those discussions.
Yeah, so, and you're definitely right. The recruiting part is not immediate at all. But once you have someone that's come on board, learned your organization, especially in a sales environment, I've seen it happen quicker than people anticipate.
Yeah.
Right? And so how and where do they start? I've had these discussions for years. So once organizations and companies come to the table and they want to target and create a diversity recruitment initiative and strategies, the first thing I ask them is always, what's your definition of diversity?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And many times that really, you can see the eyes get big. They think it's a no-brainer, right? But it really isn't. From each organization, they may have a different idea or thought what diversity is. We're all looking for deep diversity.
Yeah.
Right? And we're looking for people to bring different experiences, different skill sets to the table to help the team grow. As a unit, right? And we use some of the things that we can visually see as an identifier of somebody bringing those different attributes, right? So that's basic stuff. But when we define it, we can actually have an opportunity to really start, targeting with the bow and arrow rather than trying to cast a wide net, right?
Yeah.
So we can be very precise in that sense. So defining it's very important.
Yeah. Defining it, and let's just talk about some stats, right? And so studies show that companies that are inclusive are more likely to lead and capture new markets, to echo some of the things you're talking about. 43% of companies with diverse management exhibit higher profits, studies show. Companies with racial diversity are 35% more likely to perform at a higher level. And diverse teams are 87% better decision makers than individuals, right? I could go on and on with many stats, as I'm sure you could too. And so
I like your stats, though. Those stats are good.
Well, I heard an economist speak once, and he was giving, talking, and he said, 20% of stats are this, and 10% of stats are this, and I can't remember the exact number, but he said, and X% of stats are made up. So whether they're made up, right or wrong, or off a percentage or some, there's still, I think, truth to that as I see it when I'm in companies. And so, Can you kind of talk about the evolution of an idea that leads to growth and a lot of things we just talked about and revenues when you have a diverse background of people in the room?
Yeah. So I can actually give you a real true example, actually. So years ago, I had the opportunity to meet with the sales leaders at Alderwood's funeral homes. And at the time, Alderwoods was one of the largest funeral homes and cemeteries in the country. And they had a life insurance annuity portion of their organization where they had salespeople selling funerals and plots and et cetera within their organizations, pretty common within the funeral home industry. So I had conversation and I asked him, why is diversity so important to you guys? And he started explaining to me that the funeral home industry had changed, where their sales force was primarily Caucasian, and what they were finding is that that sales force they were selling to other Caucasians. Well, as chance would have it, in America, Caucasians were steering more towards cremations rather than big elaborate funerals. And cremations are a lot less expensive than caskets and burial sites, etc. And he said that diverse communities and immigrants and those from Spanish and speaking backgrounds, they still held true to more traditional types of funerals. And they needed more of those diverse candidates to penetrate those communities to sell their life insurance policies to those communities. So I help them attract candidates from all over the country that could come on board. And these individuals came from different cultural backgrounds. They came from different religions, etc. Some were newly naturalized immigrants as well, right? So all that, they saw an immediate impact on their bottom line within the next year and a half, and it contributed to them getting acquired shortly thereafter, about 2 or 3 years after, by a larger company. So
that's great. I love that.
Those are the things that could happen.
I love that. Let's talk about just now finding those people, right? So there's finding people, and I'm a big fan of Indeed. I think Indeed is great, and LinkedIn recruiting, I can't remember the exact name, but is a great tool. But taking the time to find the right people is very time intensive, and it's what separates, in my opinion, the good from the great and the great from the exceptional companies. And so talk about just the search and the time. But before you do, just something in my head, like, I know the numbers are staggering, but a wrong hire costs how much?
I don't know that number. That's a good number to research. I've heard numbers around keeping positions open. Not having someone in that position, it can cost you anywhere from several tens of thousands of dollars to hundreds of thousands of dollars and millions of dollars, especially if it's in a revenue generating position or someone that oversees.
Like, this one thing I want to say, I just Googled it. The United States Department of Labor puts the cost of a bad hire at up to 30% of the employee's wages for the first year. This means that if you spend at an employee who turns out to be a bad hire, you can waste up to $240,000 in total costs.
Wow.
Yeah. And so with that, so now as we look at, the process, how does a company find the right person? And how do you as a company at HamiltonDemo find the right person?
Yeah. So great question. I love that question because, John, I think that you've got two different types of recruiters or companies that are coming after you. You've got your enterprise organizations and you have your smaller to medium-sized organizations. So both of them are, in a sense, victims of their own success sometimes.
Yeah.
And the first example with enterprise organizations is, they are so beholden to their applicant tracking systems and automating their processes. I think they really can't go outside the box, right?
Yeah.
They're scraping and having their process work in a way where the recruiters sit down and they're just part of the machine, right? Yeah. Also, with the smaller and medium-sized companies, they may not have such a heavy automated process, but they've learned to find people to fill in roles in a way that they're just looking to be successful day to day, without challenges. So that's where we come in, right? Because it's important. The whole thing about diversity is just doing things different than you do on a day-to-day basis. Sure, you can find people to fill in the roles if you need them, but if you want a diverse candidate pool, if you want to create a diverse candidate pipeline so you can enrich yourself, provide yourself and your organization more opportunities from a richer candidate pool, that's when you really need to swim outside of the same pools that you're usually swimming in. Yeah. Fish in the different ponds that you're used to fishing in. And all that, we have that knowledge, so we can save you that time and effort and, trying to test which of those pools and ponds work best for you. We have a pretty good idea of which ones are going to benefit you the most already.
Okay, good. Yeah. Good. I love it. All right, good. So now let's talk about two of the biggest issues that people do wrong when it comes to looking at their current org charts and how they need to forecast out to what that org chart needs to look at 6 months and the time needed to actually hire someone, right? I think a lot of times people are looking at their current org chart and are very reactive when it comes to recruiting. It's what I see as a coach in all these companies, but really having your 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year org chart of what you think your company will look like, and then reverse engineering those positions of when you need to actually interview, hire, train, understand who's going to oversee them, succession planning, things of that nature.
Yes.
How do you advise clients when they're looking at that, forecasting their recruiting efforts?
Right. So those are all great things. Onboarding, training, all that is part of it, as you shared, because you don't want to hire someone to hit the ground running when you here on January 1st, when you really needed them in September, right? Mm-hmm. September of the previous year. Ideally, you want that person to be onboarded, assimilate with the organization and your culture, learn the best practices from the industry, from your organization to others around them, so that 6 months, a year from now, things are just clicking for them, right? Everything is second nature. So I couldn't agree with you more on that. What we advise our clients is, as soon as you identify that you are going to need someone, and usually the forecasting, I don't usually see personnel forecasting that comes to me past like 3 years.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, on a higher level, they may forecast out 5 years. But as soon as you've identified that, I don't think it's too soon to start exploring, because a couple things can happen. You can be ahead of the game in the sense where you can begin the recruiting process, and have your interview process in a more relaxed way. Hiring managers will appreciate that as well, right? Or at least they should. At least they
100%.
should. And once you have that, then you can plan. You can plan the hiring. You can plan how you want to train, onboard. Way back when I got into corporate America, I started off at General Electric, and General Electric was great with that, right? They brought you in, they interviewed you. The actual interview process took a few weeks, maybe a month and a half or so. They gave you your start date, which was a month or two out. They trained you for it. But by the time you hit the floor, you were so eager to do your job and get things accomplished. You were just slaying it. So I really think that approach is the best. But for those that are a bit apprehensive because they see their forecast a little bit too far out, like if it's a year or 2 or 3, I'm a big believer. Hey, let's start creating the candidate pipeline now.
Yeah.
Right. Let's not play behind the 8 ball. Let's start developing a candidate pipeline. And crazier things have happened. I've seen clients where they were recruiting for one role, but they identified a candidate that was perfect for another position.
Yeah.
That was coming up, or something that just opened up, or so many opportunities that they didn't even they just couldn't pass up on that candidate at the time. And that person was an immediate impact to the organization as soon as they brought him in. So I'm a true believer. Let's just get it going as soon as you've identified that you need that person.
It's great. Good. I love it. All right, good. This has been great. I think recruiting is something I'm a big fan that people should always be recruiting, always be looking at their org chart, always be looking at their people, seeing how you can coach people up, make sure that they're in the right seat or put them in the right seat, give them the opportunity to evolve. And sometimes you need to do a compassionate act and actually let people go, because a lot of times people don't have the courage to leave. And if they're not right for the company, that is a very tough discussion. But I think something that I see a lot is that people keep toxic people in the organization. And I'm a big fan that if you are toxic, regardless of how good you are, you need to go. And so when you're advising people and you're looking at kind of, that toxic behavior, because a lot of times what I see is I'll talk to companies and they'll say, I think I need to get rid of these 2 or 3 people. And I'll say, you don't need to get rid of those 2 or 3 people. You need to get rid of the manager, because the manager is the problem, not the 2 or 3 people. If you get rid of those 2 or 3 people and hire people, they're still going to be overseen by a really bad toxic manager. And you have to give people the ability to be managed by the right people. And then they rise up. Yeah. And so what do you do before we go into our speed round answer? I just want to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a big believer in training, right? On a lot of different levels, not just for your employees, but management, leadership, all of the above, right? I think that helps a lot, especially in DE&I, diversity, equity, inclusion. That's big right now. In my role, I've been approached by organizations to assist and run focus groups as well, focusing on employee experiences and what information we can take from those focus groups to help with recruiting as well, diversity recruiting. So those are all great things. And as you said, sometimes managers can be toxic as well as your employees, right? So there's an old saying, I'm sure you've heard of it before: people don't quit jobs, they quit their managers.
Amen. Right? I agree with that.
Right. And sometimes I like to I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But just because somebody's got a degree or a plaque on their wall, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good with people, and continued training can really help with that.
Yeah.
And we all suffer from bouts of feeling overwhelmed and dealing with pressure from above and bosses and everything else. So helping them out with that as well. But to that point though, John, what we found quite a bit is that those managers sometimes can have a deeper impact on your recruiting and your diversity recruiting, right? Because when those employees leave, they tell their friends and they tell their families.
Yeah.
And the word gets out, especially if you're a growing business or you're trying to grow your business, whether it's locally, regionally, et cetera. You really want to make sure that you have an employment brand that really, screams out to people that you want them to be interested in your organization. Imagine how much easier it is when you have an employment brand that reaches out to people and invites them to explore opportunities with your organization. It makes it that much easier rather than not having an employee brand or having a negative employment brand.
No, absolutely
the opposite.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love what you're talking about. All right, Ivan, you ready for a quick speed round?
Let's do it.
All right. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
From my father. He told me just whenever you're in a tight spot, always do the best that you can do.
I love that. That's great. Well, that's great wisdom. So simple, it can be complicated at times. Yeah. But it's great.
Just always do the best.
Finish this sentence. One thing every company needs to do in regards to recruiting in 2021 is?
One thing. Wow, that's a big one. Work with HamiltonDemo.
Okay. a selfless plug. I like that. Define yourself in one word.
Persistent, pleasantly persistent.
One piece of advice that you would give somebody graduating college today.
Ooh. Shoot for the top.
Yeah, I love that. Favorite book, article, or TED Talk?
Oh, so my favorite book from a long time ago is Outsiders by S.E. Hinton.
Okay. All right, good. And then tell everybody who your ideal client is and how they can get a hold of you.
Oh, so my ideal client is someone who's growing, needing leadership, a revenue driving employee, and those are the funnest types of engagements for me. Whether it's a diversity engagement or just someone looking for someone in different regions, challenge where they could be based in New York and looking for someone in Texas. Our network's pretty wide, so we've got connections all over the country, even globally.
Yeah.
So you can always find us at www.hamilton.com.
Oh, I thought it was HamiltonDemo. Am I in the wrong?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said HamiltonDemo.com.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to promote the wrong company. Yeah. I know your website better than I'm that good of a business coach. Right.
Yeah, I'm that guy, right? I'm always working, John. I'm always working.
You know what? I actually, once I was interviewing some people and I said, can you share your phone number with everyone? And they did not know their phone number. They were like, so it happens. Yeah.
I've been there. So I'll give one more shameless plug if you don't mind. HamiltonDemo is a certified veteran-owned company. My business partner is an Air Force veteran. So we're proud to support our vets and those organizations looking to create and develop a military veteran and even family members of veteran strategy to their organization.
Yeah.
All of the above. So my number is 513-257-9683.
Great.
Always welcome phone calls as well.
Well, I thank you to your business partner's service. I appreciate it. My dad was a dentist in the Air Force. I was actually born at an Air Force base
Wow.
in San Antonio, Texas. So, yeah, so I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate, Ivan, I really enjoyed talking with you. I think what you're doing is, it's such important work in the world today as we sit here. We need to see more diversity in companies, and people need to be thinking, with a new level of consciousness every day on this topic. So continue to do great things. And I appreciate you taking time to be on the show. If anybody can use Ivan, reach out to him or share this podcast with anybody. Ivan, hold on when we say, when we go offline. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Ivan.